Gold Thread Studios. Episode 3. Forbidden Love, Kashmir. The valley stops being quiet. Silence was protection. They have used up their silence. The morning after everything. Arjun's dawn, the journal, and a decision forming. The mountains take color before anything else. This is the first law of Kashmir mornings. The peaks catch the light while the valley stays dark, tucked into itself, still pretending the night has not ended. The rock faces move from black to violet to a pale, hesitant gold, and for a few minutes the summits seem to exist in a different day than everything below them. A better day. A day that has not been decided yet. Arjun Malhotra has been awake for an hour. He is lying on the narrow camp cot with his journal resting on his chest. Not the way you hold something you intend to read flat, settled, the spine against his sternum, but the way you hold something you are still deciding what to do with. The way you hold a question you wrote down hoping the act of writing it would answer it, and it didn't, and now it is morning and the question is still there, patient and unhurried as the mountains outside. He opens the journal. The light through the tent canvas is thin and early, barely enough to read by, but he knows the page. He has been carrying its words since the moment he wrote them. He reads them now anyway, as if a second reading might deliver something the first one withheld. I think I am in something I cannot name. He reads the crossed-out version, the one where he began with she is, and stopped himself mid-sentence. The pen dragged through those two words with such force you can still see it in the paper. He reads the rewritten version beneath it. I think I am in something I cannot name. He reads them both. He closes the journal. He rises at 0530, which is not unusual for him. What is unusual is the particular quality of deliberateness with which he does every small thing. He folds the blanket with the precision of someone who needs precision right now, needs the world to be a place where things can be folded correctly, squared off, set straight. He laces his boots from the bottom up, which he has done since officer training, which has become the thing his hands do while his mind is elsewhere. His hands lace the boots. His mind is elsewhere. He sets up the camp stove, the small one, the one he uses for morning tea when he wakes before the mess opens, and he goes through the ritual of it the way a person goes through a ritual they have invented for themselves, with care, with sequence, with the comfort of repetition. He fills the small pan from the water canteen. He opens the tin of loose chai, the good kind, the kind Rahul's mother sends from Jaipur in packets that always smell faintly of cardamom before you even open them. He measures it by eye. He always measures it by eye. He has never once in his life measured tea by any instrument other than intuition, and he does not intend to start. While the water heats, he opens his duty log. He writes the day's consultation schedule in his neat, even hand, the handwriting of someone who learned early that legibility is a form of respect for whoever has to read what you write. He writes, 0700, General Sikh Parade. 0900, follow-up, raises son, arm. 1100, village elder, referred by district health officer. 1400, camp perimeter check, medical supply inventory. He writes each item cleanly. He draws a single horizontal line at the bottom of the list. He draws it very straight. He is using routine as a form of argument with himself, and on some level he knows this, and he does it anyway because the argument has not yet resolved, and he needs somewhere to put his hands. The tea is ready. He pours it into the metal cup, the one with the small dent on the left side from the posting in Rajasthan 4 years ago, dropped on a stone floor and never replaced because the dent doesn't affect the drinking. He wraps both hands around it. He drinks. At 0600, Rahul appears at the tent opening. He is already dressed, already eating a piece of flatbread from last night's dinner, folded over on itself, consumed with the uncomplicated appetite of someone who has slept without difficulty and woken without ghosts. He looks at Arjun. He looks at the duty log. He looks at Arjun again. He registers everything, the too neat blanket, The two straight line under the schedule, the particular quality of stillness that means a person has been awake for some time with something on their mind. He does not say, "You look like you didn't sleep." He says, "Good morning." Arjun says, "Morning." Rahul steps inside the tent. He finds the folding stool he always takes, unfolds it with the easy familiarity of someone entirely at home in this space, and sits. He eats his flatbread. He does not ask questions. This, the deliberate, conscious, chosen decision not to ask, is the most articulate thing Rahul has done since the posting began. It is a full sentence spoken in silence. "I see you. I am not going to make you explain yourself. I am here anyway." Arjun notices it. He is grateful for it in the way you are grateful for something you didn't know you needed until the moment it arrived. He drinks his tea. He watches the mountains through the tent opening go from pale gold to the clear, full light of a Kashmir morning. And he thinks, the way he has been thinking all night, the long, slow thinking of a sleepless person in a tent with mountains outside, the thinking that circles and returns and circles again about Major Sharma's word. Clean. He has been turning it over since the warning. Clean. It means nothing that can be used against the mission, against the unit, against the purpose of being here. It means no entanglement that costs the people he is trying to help. It means remove the variables that introduce risk. He has understood this. He has agreed with it. He has been trying to live by it for days now, with the focused, effortful compliance of someone who has accepted a rule he isn't entirely certain fits the situation it was designed for. And here is the thing that has been turning in him like a stone in a stream, slowly wearing itself into a shape he did not expect. He is not sure staying away from her protects her. He is not sure his absence makes her life cleaner. He is not sure clean is the same as right. And he is not sure. This is the thought that arrives somewhere around 3 in the morning and has not left, that a man who removes himself from every complicated thing is honoring anything at all, rather than managing his fear of complication under the name of principle. He finishes his tea. He goes to work. He is excellent at his work, has always been excellent at it, finds in it the particular satisfaction of a person whose vocation and character are genuinely aligned. He does not go near the village in the afternoon. He tells himself this is a decision. He tells himself it will feel like a decision by tomorrow. It does not feel like a decision. It feels like the absence of one. What Zainab sees. Zainab speaks. The family enters the story. The kitchen in the early morning is its own country. Every kitchen is, perhaps, every place where the same two people have performed the same rituals of sustenance together long enough that the rituals have become a language, a grammar, a way of saying things the mouth hasn't found words for yet. In this kitchen, in this house at the upper end of the village, the language has been one of grief for 3 years. Of loss that never quite named itself. Of two women moving through the same small space, careful not to break the thin skin of routine stretched over something much heavier beneath. Amira wakes before the sun and comes to the kitchen because the kitchen is the place you come to when your hands need something to do and your mind needs something to hold it. She opens the window over the wooden shelf, the shelf her father built, fitted and sanded and set with the careful love of a man who knew his hands were his truest language. The morning comes in cold and clean, smelling of pine and the stream and the faint trace of saffron from the garden below. She fills the pan. She sets it to heat. She begins to move through the morning ritual of Kashmiri pink chai, the cardamom first, cracked with the base of the spoon, then the tea leaves. The milk that will turn it that extraordinary shade of rose gold that she has loved since she was small enough to believe that beauty was uncomplicated. Zainab comes in quietly. She has always moved quietly, but since Tariq she has moved as if speed itself is something to be careful of, as if moving too fast might disturb something that is already too close to the surface. She takes her place at the cutting board without ceremony. She picks up the knife. She begins to work. They have done this 10,000 times, these two. Mother and daughter in the kitchen in the early light. Before, there was conversation, easy and continuous, the rolling commentary of a warm house, her mother's opinions on the market, on the neighbors, on the quality of this season's saffron against last season's. Before. Now there is the sound of the knife, the sound of the pan, the sound of the stream outside, the single photograph on the wall, the family, 4 of them, complete, before, in its wooden frame that has not been moved or touched or dusted differently than anything else, but that Amira cannot look at anymore and her mother always does. Zainab's eyes go to it each morning when she enters the kitchen. They stay for only a moment, but they always go. They work in the silence that is their language. The chai comes to the first boil. Amira stirs it. The cardamom opens into the steam. Outside, the village is beginning its slow waking, the sound of a door, the distant bell of a goat, the first call to prayer from the old mosque at the village's center. Spiraling up into the cold morning air the way it has spiraled up for 300 years, and will spiral long after every person now alive to hear it is gone. And then, without preamble, without transition, without the clearing of throat or shifting of weight that usually signals an important thing coming, Zainab says, there's a soldier at the camp. The medic. Amira's hands do not stop. She stirs the chai. She says, there are several soldiers at the camp. Zainab says, the one who sat raises boy's arm. A pause long enough to contain 3 breaths. Farouk mentioned it at the market. He mentioned other things. These 4 words are a sentence that contains everything. Amira knows immediately, with the absolute, cold, clarifying certainty of someone who has been half waiting for exactly this, what other things means. She knows what Farouk saw. She knows what Farouk tells. The village market is its own information system, accurate in some ways, embellished in others, traveling at the speed of human attention, never neutral. It does not intend harm. It simply does not believe in the distinction between knowing and telling. She keeps stirring. She says, Farouk should tend his fruit. Her voice is even. Her hand is steady. Zainab says nothing for a long time. Long enough that Amira finishes the chai, pours both cups, sets one in front of where her mother will sit, takes her own to the window. Long enough that the silence stretches and Amira begins to believe almost, nearly, not quite, that the conversation is over. That it will be absorbed into the kitchen's general quiet the way all difficult things in this house have been absorbed for 3 years, taken in and held without being examined. Then her mother speaks. She does not turn. She addresses the window, the mountains, the particular middle distance she has been speaking to since Tariq died, the space just beyond the glass where perhaps she believes he can still hear her if she angles herself correctly toward the place he last was. She says, quietly, in the voice she uses for the things that matter most, I am not saying don't. I am saying be careful with what you cannot afford to lose again. She does not look at Amira when she says it. She picks up her cup. She goes to the window. She stands there with her tea and her mountains and her grief and whatever else she carries that she has never put into sentences. She does not say anything else. Amira stands in the kitchen holding a knife and a half-chopped onion and the sentence her mother has just given her, which is the most her mother has spoken, the most she has stepped out of the place she has been since Tariq, in 6 months. She holds it the way you hold something breakable. She turns it over. I am not saying don't. She has been braced for don't. She has been braced for the village's version, her family's version, every version of the word that would make the thing she is feeling into a danger to be managed rather than a life to be lived. She was ready to fight it or absorb it or fold it quietly into the shape of herself that has been shrinking for 3 years, making room for everyone else's fear. Her mother did not say don't. Her mother said, be careful with what you cannot afford to lose again. Which is not a wall. Which is a warning issued from inside love, not outside it. which is a woman who has already been to the place where loss empties you of everything, saying to the person she loves most in this world, I have been somewhere you don't want to go. Whatever this is, go carefully. Survive it. Whatever it becomes, survive it. It is the most loving thing her mother has said to her in 3 years. Amira puts down the knife. She picks up her cup of chai. She stands beside her mother at the window, close enough that their shoulders nearly touch, and she looks at the mountains that her mother has been talking to. They are very beautiful this morning. They are very large and very old, and they have seen everything and forgotten nothing, and they do not offer advice. They simply stand, as they have always stood, as they will stand long after this conversation, too, is gone. Scene 3. The silence of staying away. 5 days. 2 people not going where they might go. Day 1. Arjun does not take the upper path after his afternoon rounds. He takes the lower path, which goes down through the camp's southern perimeter and back along the stream, and is in every practical sense the longer route to nowhere in particular. He walks it with the deliberate pace of a man taking exercise, which he is, technically, doing. The mountains are very clear today. He notices this the way you notice things you are not letting yourself notice other things. Day 1. Amira does not go to the herb garden in the afternoon, though the mint is due for cutting, and she has been meaning to go for 3 days. She stays at the embroidery frame instead. She finishes the silver bird, the one she started in episode 2, the one whose wings she found herself making too precise, too careful, too controlled. She finishes it cleanly. She holds it up. It is very good. It is technically faultless. She sets it on the pile for the Srinagar buyer and does not look at it again. Day 2. Arjun teaches Rahul the word sabr. He does not know why he has started doing this, teaching Kashmiri words in the mornings, one at a time, the way someone might collect small things without being certain what they are collecting toward. He says, sabr. It means patience. Rahul repeats it carefully. He has been learning these words without asking why, which is the continuation of a generosity he has been extending since the morning he chose to say good morning and nothing else. He says the word back correctly. He eats his breakfast. He moves on. Day 2. Amira starts a new piece. A landscape, not a pattern, not the geometric precision of the traditional work that has been her frame for 3 years. A landscape. Mountains and a tree. She has not done a landscape since art school, since before. Her hands know the motion even when her head is skeptical of it. She tells Nanny Jan it is for the Srinagar buyer who asked for something different. Nanny Jan looks at the new piece for a long moment. She says, yes. Just, yes. The single word confirmation of someone who has decided to let things take their course while appearing entirely to be managing them. Day 3. Arjun writes in his duty log for longer than necessary. He adds notes on each consultation that go beyond what the log requires, context, observations, follow-up considerations. The notes are thorough and useful and also clearly the work of a mind that is using thoroughness as a form of occupation. Rahul reads over his shoulder at one point, says nothing, puts a cup of tea on the desk, and leaves. Day 3. Amira passes the camp gate on the way to the lower market. The direct route goes past it. There is no other way without adding 20 minutes. She does not slow her pace. She does not look toward it. She is aware of not looking with the full, focused intensity that looking would have required. Day 4. Arjun teaches Rahul Umid. Hope. Rahul says it back. He says, that's a good word. Arjun says, most of them are. They let that sit. Day 4. Amira hears boots on the upper path in the afternoon, the path that passes above the herb garden, the one that soldiers use occasionally on perimeter patrols. She looks up from the embroidery. She listens. The rhythm is wrong. Wrong weight, wrong pace, not the step she has learned without intending to learn it. A different soldier. The feeling that moves through her in the moment she realizes this, the specific, unmistakable quality of that feeling, is its own kind of information. She does not examine it closely. She looks back at her work. Her hands are steady. The rest of her is not. Day 5. Whacked. Time. Arjun says it. Rahul says it back. Rahul sets down his cup and says, quietly, without his usual lightness, without the easy humor that has been his register for the whole posting, you know you're running out of it. The posting. Arjun says, 4 months, maybe 5. Rahul says, yeah. He picks up his cup. He goes back inside. Absence, it turns out, has a shape. You can feel it the way you can feel the outline of a held thing after you set it down, the warmth remaining in the shape of what was there. Both of them know this now. By day 5, the absence has become more present than the presence ever was, which is the particular cruelty of restraint. Sometimes what you remove yourself from becomes larger in the removing. Something has to give. Not dramatically. The valley doesn't do dramatic. Something simply shifts. The way pressure always eventually finds the seam. Scene 4. The letter from Priya. Arjun alone. A letter from his sister. The past speaks. The mail arrives at the camp on Thursday afternoons, carried up from the district post office in the supply vehicle along with the medical requisitions and the ration supplements and whatever other bureaucratic material the valley requires of the army's presence here. Most weeks, Arjun gets nothing personal, his parents write rarely and his friends from officer training less often than they promised they would when they were posted apart. He has made peace with this. The posting is temporary. The mail is unreliable. The mountains are not in the habit of apologizing for either. But this Thursday there is a letter. He recognizes Priya's handwriting on the envelope before he even reads his name, the large, looping letters, the way she makes her P's with a particular flourish she developed in school and never shed. The slightly too blue ink of the specific pen she has used since she was 14 and which she buys in bulk because she cannot imagine writing with anything else. He takes it to the medical tent. Late afternoon now, the light through the tent opening going long and golden, the kind of light that softens edges, that makes even a canvas tent look like somewhere a person might choose to be. He sits at the small desk. He opens the letter carefully, the way you open things from people you love, not quickly, not carelessly, with attention to the beginning of it. Priya writes the way she talks, bright, direct, occasionally teasing, deeply loving beneath every word, the brightness itself a form of love rather than an absence of depth. She is in her 2nd year of medical school in Delhi. She writes about a professor who speaks so fast she has to listen at 1.5 speed and still misses things. She writes about her study group, which has 5 members and collectively subsists on bad coffee and mutual anxiety. She writes about her small apartment with the window that faces east so she gets the morning light, which she says she chose over the larger apartment that faced west because she admits, completely her brother's sister when it comes to mornings. And then she writes about a patient. A child, 6 years old, admitted scared and silent, the specific silence of a small person who has been moved through too many unfamiliar rooms by too many unfamiliar adults and has decided that silence is the safest response to all of it. She writes, I remembered what you used to do. Before you said anything, you'd pull a chair up. You'd sit down to their level. You'd just be there for a minute, in their space, without asking for anything yet. So I did that. I pulled the chair up. I sat down. I didn't say a word for almost a whole minute. And then this child looked at me, really looked at me, the way children look at you when they've decided to decide about you, and said, You're the good kind. He reads this sentence twice. She writes, You taught me that, Anna. I hope you know that. He puts the letter down on the desk. He picks it up. He reads it again. He thinks about Priya, this person she is becoming, the doctor she is building herself into, one small careful act at a time. He thinks about the chair. The specific, deliberate act of pulling a chair up and sitting down at someone else's level before saying anything, not because it is a technique, Not because a textbook said to, but because it is what genuine attention looks like when it is embodied. He thinks about what it means to do that. To move toward rather than away. To reduce the distance not by demanding entry, but by making yourself accessible. To let the other person decide what happens next. He picks up his journal. He writes, Priya says a 6-year-old called her the good kind. She says I taught her that. I do not know if I deserve credit for what she has done with whatever she learned from me. I think she has made it into something better than I gave her. But I am glad it propagated forward. I am glad the chair became a thing she carried. I want to be the good kind here. I was certain last week that this required staying away. I am less certain now. Staying away feels clean. Staying away feels safe for me. I'm not sure it's about me. Here is what I keep arriving at. A person who pulls a chair up is not taking anything. They are not claiming anything. They are not demanding access or imposing themselves or using their presence as a force. They are simply making themselves present at someone's level and leaving the rest entirely open. That is not the same as advancing. That is not the same as pursuing. That is being there carefully with full awareness of what you are and what you owe and what you must never demand. I think staying away felt like the right thing because it felt like discipline. But I wonder now if what it actually was cowardice dressed as principle. I wonder if I was protecting myself and calling it protecting her. Tomorrow I'm going to the herb garden. Not to find her. Genuinely, the medicinal pantry has a gap in the dried thyme, and I have written permission from the village council to tend the upper beds. If she happens to be there, I will not pretend she isn't. I will pull the chair up. I will let her decide what happens next. He closes the journal. He sits for a long time in the tent with the letter in his hand and the mountains outside going from gold to blue to almost dark, the slow, unhurried colorwork of a Kashmiri dusk, which never hurries, which has been performing this transition for millions of years and intends to continue. He reads Priya's letter one more time. He folds it along its original creases, carefully, the way you fold something you intend to keep. He puts it in the inner pocket of his jacket, the left breast pocket, the one closest to where he is, where he keeps the things that matter. He goes to sleep before the mountains are fully dark. It is the first night in a week that he does not lie awake for an hour first. Scene 5, the rain comes. The Kashmir rain. The most intimate scene yet. There is a kind of rain that Kashmir does unlike anywhere else. Sudden, total, arriving without the courtesy of a long warning, transforming the world within minutes from clear to committed. The mountains are there, and then they are not. The sky closes like a hand. The cold comes down with the water, not the cold of winter, but the cold of altitude, of cloud height, of air that has never been warm in the way low places are warm. The village sounds change. The hollow knock of rain on wooden rooftops becomes the valley's new percussion. The stream finds a different voice, louder, more urgent, the voice of something that has been given more than it expected. The earth smells of itself in a way it does not when it is dry, the stone and the saffron and the pine and the cold all releasing something they had been holding. Arjun is at the herb garden. He is genuinely there. This matters. Let it be recorded that he arrived before the rain and before he had any reason to expect anything except time and the afternoon. He was already crouching at the upper medicinal bed, examining the state of the lavender that has been struggling in the changed season soil, making notes on what needs to be done before the first frost. His kit is open beside him. His notebook is out. He is, in every verifiable sense, exactly where he wrote he would be and for exactly the reason he wrote he would be there. When the rain starts, he moves fast, the efficient, practiced speed of someone who has weathered many postings in many weathers and has learned that the first 30 seconds of a Kashmir rain are the ones that matter for everything you want to keep dry. He has a small canvas tarp in his kit. He pulls it out, unfolds it, rigs it over the medicinal plant beds with the focused competence of a person who is not performing competence for anyone. Simply doing what needs doing because the plants need shelter and he is the person here who can provide it. He does not expect her to be there. He is genuinely, honestly not expecting her. She is there. Amira came to the garden for mint. Not in the afternoon, she had told herself. She had been very specific with herself about this, the afternoon being the time she was no longer permitting herself. But the morning's mint had not been enough for her mother's evening tea, and the evening tea was important, and the garden was close, and the sky had been clear when she left the house. She was going to be quick. She was going to cut what she needed and come back by the shorter path, and this would be nothing. This would be an errand. This would be a woman getting herbs from a garden, which is what this was. The rain caught her on the path. She made it to the wide rock overhang at the garden's upper edge, the one that makes a half roof over the northernmost herb beds, where the rock juts out far enough to shelter 2 people standing close together, but not 3. She is dry under it. Barely. The rain comes down hard at the overhang's edge, and she is watching it and breathing the smell of mountain rain on stone, and she is telling herself this was a reasonable errand when she hears someone at the lower beds and looks down. She sees him before he sees her. She watches him rig the canvas tarp, methodical, unhurried in his focus, not performing it for anyone. He doesn't know she's there. He is simply doing what needs doing for the plants, because it is the right thing to do for the plants. She watches his hands, the sureness of them, the economy of motion, the way he secures the tarp corner without looking, his fingers finding the stake by memory. And then he looks up. And he sees her. 3 seconds. They have become very good at 3 seconds. They have had practice. He says, "The overhang holds?" She says, "For now." He looks at the sky, the rain intensifying, the mountains gone fully behind the cloud, the world contracted to the garden and the sound of water and the cold. He says, "I'll wait it out by the lower beds." She says, "There's room." She says it before she has decided to say it. Her own voice registers this before the rest of her does, a slight catch, a fractional pause between the 2 words, the hesitation of a person whose instinct has moved faster than their intention. She does not take it back. She looks at the rain. She has said it. It is said. He comes to the overhang. He does not crowd the space. He takes the far edge. There is room for 2 people who are being careful with each other, and they are both very careful, both acutely aware of what carefulness costs them now versus what it cost them a month ago. A month ago, carefulness was instinct. Now it is effort, which means something has changed. The rain comes down in the full Kashmir manner, committed, cold, total, utterly indifferent to the 2 human beings standing beneath a rock on a hillside attempting to be casual about it. The mountains are hidden. The stream is going. The garden smells of wet thyme and crushed mint where his boot found it crossing the lower bed, and mountain mud and cold water, and the particular clean smell of stone being rained on. They stand in the shelter of the rock and for a long time a full, extended, real silence that is not uncomfortable, but that is not nothing either, that has weight, that is doing work, neither speaks. The rain is the sound. The cold is the texture. The closeness is 12 inches of air between 2 people who have been constructing each other in their separate imaginations for weeks, and the particular startling quality of standing next to the real person instead of the constructed version. He is taller than memory. She smells of saffron and clean cloth and cardamom from the morning's chai. He smells of mountain air and something medicinal, and underneath that something simply human, warmth, presence, the particular smell of a person who is actually here. He says, "I've been staying away." She says, "I know." He says, "I thought it was the right thing." She says, "Was it?" He says, "I don't know anymore." She says, "Honest answer." He says, "It's the only kind I have." The rain. The mountains somewhere behind the cloud. The cold air between them conducting something neither is naming. She says, "My mother knows." Farouk told her. He says, Farouk. She says, the fruit seller. He sees things. He says, what did he say? She says, enough. A pause. She told me to be careful with what I cannot afford to lose again. He takes this in. He holds it. He says, she's right. She says, yes. He says, I don't want to be something that costs you something. She turns and looks at him, the full look, unrationed, unfiltered, the one she has been carefully withholding in every previous encounter because full looks carry information. She says, that's not yours to decide alone. He is quiet for a long moment. She holds the look. He meets it. The rain begins to ease. The mountains start to return, first as shapes in the gray, faint silhouettes like memory coming back, then as themselves, solid and enormous and unchanged. The stream settles back into its ordinary voice. The garden drips. The world reconstitutes itself around them, the same world it was an hour ago, and also not. He says, I don't know what this is. She says, neither do I. He says, is that enough? For now? To not know and still, he stops. Not from doubt. From the inadequacy of the available words. She finishes for him, very quietly, still be here. She says, yes. For now. He nods. She nods. They do not touch. They have not touched. They stand in the clearing rain in the herb garden on the slope above the village, and they have just agreed to something neither of them can fully name and both of them recognize entirely. The way you recognize a word in a language you never learned and understand it anyway, because some things are older than language, because some meanings don't require translation. The last of the cloud moves. The mountains are fully back. The garden sparkles. Scene 6. What Farouk carries. The village talks. Nanny Jan receives the information. The market the next morning is its fullest self, the weekly gathering that has been gathering this way since before anyone currently present was born. The stalls arrange themselves in the same order every week, grain sellers at the eastern end, weavers at the center, produce and fruit along the western wall where the light falls best in the morning. Farouk's stall is at the corner, the prime position, the one his father held before him and his grandfather before that. It is the position of a family that has been here long enough for the market to gather around them. He is a good man, Farouk. This must be said clearly and meant genuinely. He is not a villain. He is not malicious. He does not set out this morning with any intention except to sell his late-season apples and his extraordinary figs and the persimmons that come only twice a year and which he prices carefully because their scarcity is part of their value and he is a practical man. He loves this village with the possessive, four-generation love of someone who has never lived anywhere else and cannot imagine why anyone would want to. He tells things because he believes the village should know its own business. He has always operated on the assumption that knowledge shared is knowledge that serves. He has never, in 50-some years of market days, stopped to examine whether the knowing and the telling are always the same act with the same consequence. Today he has figs. He has the late apples from the upper valley, the ones that ripen slowly and taste of cold air and sweetness in equal measure. He has the persimmons, 4 crates, exceptional color this year. The rain did something right for them. He arranges the display with the attention of someone who understands that selling is partly about beauty. Nanny Jan arrives at the market at the same time she always arrives, 40 minutes after it opens, which gives the sellers time to set up and gives her the advantage of seeing everything already laid out rather than watching it assemble. She moves at her pace, the pace she has moved at for as long as anyone in this village can remember, which is not slow but is entirely deliberate, as though each step is placed with full awareness of exactly where she is putting it. She carries her basket in the crook of her left arm. She has carried it in the crook of her left arm since she was a girl watching her own grandmother carry hers the same way. Some things are passed down in the body rather than the words. She arrives at Farouk's stall. They exchange the greetings of people who have been exchanging greetings for 50 years, the full elaborate courtesy of elders, the questions that mean you matter to me, the responses that mean I know. He asks after Zainab. She says Zainab is well, alhamdulillah. Thank you for asking. She asks after his eldest son in Jammu. He says the boy is well, settled, the grandchildren are healthy and loud. They say that is a blessing. They both mean it. She examines the figs. She presses each one at the base, not the top, always the base, the way her grandmother taught her, the way that tells you what the top cannot. She selects 3. She puts them in her basket. And then Farouk mentions the herb garden. The rain. 2 figures under the rock overhang. He does not say it with malice. He says it with the gentle, concerned emphasis of someone performing a civic function. He is providing useful information to a family elder who, in his understanding, should be aware of the situation. He phrases it carefully, with the vocabulary of concern rather than gossip. He is worried, he says, for the family. He has heard others speaking about it. He thought she should know. Nanny Jan listens. She selects another figure. She presses it at the base. She puts it in her basket. She selects another. She says, these are good this year. Farouk says, the rain helped. She says, rain often does. She pays him exactly and correctly, as she always does. She takes her basket. She walks away. Only what the surface permits. She guards her interior even from narrative intrusion, which is either wisdom or the habit of a lifetime in a place that has always looked for things to use. But this much can be said. She is not alarmed. She is not surprised. She has known not the specifics, but the shape of it, since before there was anything specific to know. She is calculating. The way old women in difficult valleys calculate. What are the costs? What are the protections? What can be done and what cannot be undone? What is the shape of this thing, and which shape requires action and which requires patience, and how do you tell the difference before it is too late to choose correctly? She walks home through the market with her bag of figs and a mind working considerably faster than her pace suggests. She does not hurry. Hurrying would show her hand, and she has not decided yet which hand to show. She does not say anything to Amira when she gets home. She puts the figs on the table, sets them there with the ordinary thud of ordinary fruit. She sits in her chair by the window, the one with the worn arm from years of the same elbow resting on it. She picks up her needlework. She says, the persimmons are early this year. Amira says, are they? Nanny Jan says, Farouk says the rain helped. She says nothing more. The room does the work. The silence carries the message with perfect accuracy. I know. I am deciding what to do with knowing. You have time. Not unlimited time, but time. Scene 7, 2 decisions. The night. 2 people making private commitments. Night settles on the valley the way it always settles, gradually at first, then all at once, the long dusk giving way to the particular deep dark of a mountain valley where the stars are clear and numerous and the only lights are the ones people have made themselves. 2 of those lights are burning late tonight. Neither person knows the other's light is on. Neither needs to. In Amira's room, she is not at the embroidery frame. She is at the window. The chair she reserves for thinking clearly, the one she pulls to face the mountains directly when the thing she is working through is too large for the embroidery frame, or the kitchen, or any of the indoor spaces of her ordinary life. The mountains at night are enormous and patient and indifferent in the way that is also, somehow, comforting. They do not ask anything of her. They make no claim. They simply are, as they have been, as they will be, with a permanence that puts the human scale of things in its proper perspective without diminishing the human scale entirely. She thinks about what her mother said. Be careful with what you cannot afford to lose again. She has been turning this over for days, and she has arrived at something she did not expect to arrive at, traveling a path she did not know she was on until she found herself at its end. She does not think that careful means away. She has tried away. She has been away from everything for 3 years, careful, controlled, small, safe, making herself the minimum version of herself that could still technically be called living. She has been away from feeling and away from risk and away from anything that might break open the thing she has been holding together since Tarek's checkpoint, since the moment the world showed her exactly what it thought of the people she loved. She has been so careful. She has been so very relentlessly, exhaustingly careful. And Tarek is still gone. And the mountain has not moved. And the valley has not healed, and her careful, controlled, small, safe life has not restored anything, has not brought back what was taken, has not filled the space where her brother used to be, has not done anything except make her smaller and smaller until she began to wonder if small was the point, if small was what the world wanted of her, if disappearing by degrees into careful was simply the outcome she was supposed to accept. She thinks, what if careful means present? What if careful means I go toward the things I choose, with my eyes open, knowing the cost, choosing anyway, moving deliberately rather than simply surviving? What if careful is not a wall between herself and the world, but a path she walks into the world, with attention, with full sight, without pretending the risks are not what they are? What if you can know exactly what something might cost and choose it anyway, not from recklessness, but from the clear-eyed decision that the cost of not choosing is also a cost, and you have been paying it for 3 years, and you are tired. She gets up. She goes to the embroidery frame. She starts a new piece. She picks up gold thread, not the crimson of the old patterns, not the silver of the bird she has finished and put aside. Gold. She picks it up consciously, deliberately, knowing she is choosing it and why. Gold on deep blue cloth. Her hands find the first movements of the pattern. She does not know yet what the full shape will be. Her hands will tell her. They always have. Across the valley, in the camp, in the medical tent with the canvas walls and the small desk and the cot with the folded blanket, Arjun is writing. He has been writing for an hour. This is the longest journal entry of the posting, and it is him thinking on paper, which is the only way he fully thinks, externalized, made visible, held in front of his eyes where he can look at it without it slipping away into the place where unexamined things go. I have been getting something wrong about honor. I have always had a clear idea of what honor requires. The truth, the patience first, the mission second, the self last. Never use position to take something. Protect people, including from yourself if necessary. These are not wrong. I have checked them and they are not wrong. But I've been treating honor as subtraction. Remove yourself. Minimize. Stay clean. Stand back from anything that might complicate the picture. And I've been calling this discipline. I've been calling it integrity. I've been calling it the right thing, which is the most dangerous phrase available to a person who wants to do something comfortable and have it mean something noble. Here is what Priya did. She pulled the chair up. She moved toward. She did it carefully, with full awareness of what she was, and what she owed, and what she should not demand. But she moved toward. She reduced the distance. She made herself present at someone's level, and left the rest entirely, completely, genuinely open. That is not the same as advancing. That is not the same as claiming anything. That is being present without demanding anything in return for your presence. I think I have been confusing staying away with being good. I think I have been using one as a substitute for the other, which is not the same thing at all. She said, that's not yours to decide alone. She is right. I keep making decisions about what is best for her without asking her. I keep calculating her risk without consulting the person bearing it. This is not care. This is a particular kind of arrogance dressed as consideration, and I am tired of it. I'm going to be the person who pulls the chair up. Carefully. Eyes open. Toward. Whatever this is, and I still don't know what it is, and neither does she, and that honesty is the best thing we have. I am going to meet it with my eyes open instead of my back turned. This is going to require something of me. I know that. I accept that. I'd rather be required something of than absent. He closes the journal. He lies back on the cot. He looks at the tent ceiling, the familiar weave of it, the specific imperfections he has memorized over months of nights like this. He listens to the valley at night, the stream, the wind through the deodars, the occasional distant sound from the village that the valley carries clearly in the cold air. Somewhere across the valley, one light is still burning, warm, amber, the particular light of an embroidery lamp in an upper floor window. He cannot see it from the camp. The angle is wrong, the distance too far, the dark between here and there complete. He knows it is there anyway. He knows it the way you know certain things without evidence, because the valley carries information between people whether they intend it to or not, and he has been paying attention to this valley for months now, and some things you simply know. He closes his eyes. He sleeps. Scene 8. What the gold thread means. Morning. Both worlds. The episode's emotional landing. Dawn comes to Kashmir the way it always comes, the mountains first, the peaks catching the earliest light while everything below is still dark, the summits gold pink against a sky that has not yet decided what color it will be today. The lake below the village begins its daily transformation from gray to silver to the extraordinary clear blue of a Kashmir morning, a blue so precise, so intentional looking, that it seems less like a natural phenomenon than like a decision made by someone who understood exactly what they were doing. Amira has been stitching through the early hours. She has been awake since 2, which is later than she went to sleep and earlier than she intended to wake, and she has not been troubled by this. She has learned, in these years of difficult nights, that fighting the wakefulness costs more than accepting it, that the body often wakes you for its own good reasons, and that the best response is to put your hands to work and let the mind sort itself out in the background. She holds up the embroidery frame now, in the early light. She looks at what she has made. A china leaf. Not the crimson of the traditional pattern. She has done the crimson china leaf 100 times, 1,000 times. It is in her hands the way breathing is in her lungs, involuntary and exact. This leaf is gold. Gold thread on deep blue cloth, the finest gold she has, the thread she saves for commissions that matter, for work that is meant to last. The leaf is not complete. She can see what it is becoming, which is something she can only describe as itself, not a copy of any pattern she has done before, not a reproduction of the traditional form, but its own thing, arrived at by its own path. The gold on blue is different from anything she has made in years. Warmer. More deliberate. Chosen consciously, not the way the silver bird was chosen, that her hands knew first. This she chose. This was her mind and her hands moving together, saying the same thing at the same time for once. She puts the frame down carefully. She wraps her pale blue shawl around her shoulders, the embroidered one, the one her mother made for her the year before Tariq, the one she wears every day because she does not believe in saving things for special occasions anymore. Because she understands now that today is the special occasion, that today is in fact the only occasion there ever reliably is. She goes to the window. The mountains. The same mountains. A different morning. She thinks, I am not naive. She says it to herself clearly and means it completely. She is not a person who mistakes feeling for certainty or hope for guarantee. She knows what this valley carries. She knows what she carries. She knows that whatever she and Arjun agreed to in the rain, that unnamed, unformalized, insufficient, and entirely real agreement, it exists inside a world that has very strong opinions about it. A world that contains Farouk and Nanny Jan's calculations, and her mother's morning warning, and Major Sharma's warnings, and the 4 months or 5 months remaining on a posting that will end regardless of what either of them decides. She is not pretending the world isn't the world. She is simply deciding that she is also in the world. That she has not forfeited the right to be in it deliberately. That 3 years of shrinking has not made the world smaller, it has only made her smaller, and she is done with that particular economy. She is done buying safety at the cost of herself. The first call to prayer rises from the mosque at the village's center, the sound she has heard every morning of her life, spiraling upward in the cold, clear air with the certainty of something that has been doing this for centuries and does not require reinforcement. She listens to it with the attention she has not given it in years, really listens, the way you listen to something ancient when you have finally stopped being too preoccupied with your own interior to hear anything outside it. It is very beautiful. It has always been very beautiful. She has simply been too small to notice. At the camp, the wake-up call comes 10 minutes after the prayer, the organized, practical, military waking of a place that runs on schedule. Arjun is already at the medical tent by the time the first call to prayer finishes. He has his tea. He is standing in the tent opening, not sitting, standing, which is different, which is the posture of someone who intends to look at the thing in front of him rather than turn away from it. The valley coming back from the dark. The mountains revealing themselves in their daily order. The lake. The village. The smoke beginning from the first kitchen fires. Rahul comes to stand beside him. They do not speak immediately. They drink their tea and watch the valley come alive, and they are simply two people in the morning together, which is sometimes enough and sometimes everything. After a long silence, long enough to be comfortable, long enough to mean something, Rahul says, "You look different." Arjun says, "Different how?" Rahul says, "Like you decided something." Arjun says, "Maybe." Rahul says, "Good different or bad different?" Arjun looks at the mountains. He looks at the lake. He looks at the village at the edge of the morning. He says, "I think just different." Rahul nods. He drinks his tea. After a moment, after what is clearly a moment of decision on his part, a choosing of what to say from among the things available to him, he says, "The word I taught you last week. Sabr." Arjun says, "Patience." Rahul says, "You're going to need it." He says this without irony, without his usual lightness, without the easy warm humor that has been his signature since the first day of the posting. He says it the way a friend speaks when he has been paying close, careful attention, and wants the person he loves to know that the attention has been paid, that he sees the thing, that he understands its weight, that he is not going to pretend otherwise for the sake of ease. He puts his cup on the edge of the supply box. He goes back inside. He does not look back. Arjun stands in the tent opening a moment longer. His tea. His mountains. His valley, which is not his, which he knows is not his, which he holds with the careful awareness of someone borrowing something precious. Closing the valley still. Wide view. The promise of what comes next. Dawn light on Kashmir, full and final, the light that belongs to no single person and is offered to everyone. The mountains in their morning colors, the gold pink of early light on Himalayan rock that has no equivalent anywhere else on earth. The particular quality of Himalayan dawn that painters have tried to capture for 200 years, and that the valley itself produces every morning with no effort and no awareness of what it is doing. The lake going from gray to silver to a blue so clean, so unreasonably clear, that it looks less like water than like the sky decided to lie down for a while. The village waking in its gradual way. The camp waking in its organized way. A bird, the one Amira knows the name of in Kashmiri, the one that has been coming to the stream bank since before she was old enough to know its name. Landing on the bank and looking at the water with the focused patience of something that has done this 10,000 mornings and finds it new each time. This valley has always held more than it shows. It holds grief that never fully said what it was. It holds love that had no language for itself, that existed in the body before the mind caught up to it, that lived in the space between people before either person could name it. It holds the long, slow work of people trying to be more than what was done to them, and the longer, slower, more difficult work of people trying to be more than what they were built to do. Two people, this morning, in this valley, a woman with gold thread on blue